This would be crazy. Leaked meeting between Indiana Fever GM and Lisa Bluder sparks coaching change rumors.
That was former Iowa star Caitlin Clark confirming that Lisa Bluder is the best leader she ever been around. You want to know why she said that? I can give you one good reason. And that reason being that they was winning, and Lisa Bluder knew exactly how to use Caitlin Clark, knew exactly how her style of play was, and she applied that to that team. And that's why they were so successful.
I thought at times we could have played a little bit faster, and I think that's on me, like not conceding in that. We still got to play up tempo. We still got to play fast. But I mean, I thought for the most part we did a lot of stuff that coach wanted us to do, and you know, that wasn't why we lost.
She gave them everything, her fire, her talent, her name. Now the only person who truly knew how to set her free might be walking through the door. It was more than just a loss. It was a public unraveling, a slow-motion implosion under stadium lights. The Indiana Fever didn't just fall short against the Las Vegas Aces.
Fire Stephanie White yesterday. Like, fire her yesterday. And the reason why is not that Stephanie White is a bad basketball coach. It's not that Stephanie White is a bad motivational speaker. It's not that Stephanie White has done a bad job defending her players. It's not any of that. It's that Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark fundamentally have different understandings of the sport of basketball.
They collapsed, and at the center of the wreckage stood Caitlin Clark, staring into nothing, her face blank, her shoulders heavy with a burden no rookie should carry alone. Her teammates moved around her, coaches barked from the sideline, but she stood still, like a signal tower that had lost power. Her patience, always legendary, finally gave out, not in anger, not in words, but in the chilling silence of a player who no longer sees a way forward. For weeks, maybe months, Clark had been trying to hold it together. The numbers weren't terrible, but the spark, that wild, unpredictable genius that made her a household name at Iowa, was gone. She wasn't leading, she was surviving. Every possession felt forced, every play an uphill battle. No chemistry, no freedom, no system that allowed her to breathe, let alone fly. She wasn't being coached, she was being constrained.
And Caitlin Clark, by and large, and I don't know if this is Stephanie White channeling her inner Christie sides. This was an issue last year. It's an issue this year. Caitlin Clark is benign in the fourth quarter. And them not trying to figure out a way to get her looks in the fourth is a total failure.
And that night, under the fluorescent heartbreak of yet another blown game, her message was clear. Something has to change. And behind closed doors, Indiana's front office finally heard the words she never said out loud. They didn't just watch the game, they read her silence like scripture. And they acted, but the storm was just beginning to swirl. At first, it was just a whisper, a message passed quietly between agents, a text chain lighting up late at night. But then the whisper grew teeth. Lisa Bluder, the legendary architect of Clark's NCAA reign.
It was just not a good day for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. Many fans are still poking fingers at head coach Stephanie White for actually making the game not entertaining anymore, bro. This motion offense has to be addressed, and Stephanie White has to be held accountable because it's truly the offense that she's running, and it is not for Caitlin Clark at this point. Now, both Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White spoke to the media immediately after this game. Check out what they had to say. Roll the footage.
Stretches that are really good, there's be stretches that aren't as good, and obviously it's frustrating. You want them to go in, and even tonight I felt like there was a few that felt really good off my hand and it just didn't go down. And even the mid-range jump shot to start the fourth quarter and the three to start the fourth quarter, they both felt good off my hand. So it's just it's just frustrating. And I think for the challenge for myself going forward is just continue to pour into every other aspect of the game, and I can continue to have an impact in all those other areas. I thought I got to the rim well. It's just certainly a tough shooting night, and I got to find a way to continue to shoot and remain confident in myself because I know I put the time in. But for me, I don't feel like it's anything that's off necessarily. But
what we have to do as a staff to get her better looks, higher quality looks. Every game plan is going to be to make her score inside the three-point line. Right, and the different ways that they're going to do that. Physicality, coverage, showing bodies, all the different things. And, we have to do a better job of getting her higher quality looks. I'm not worried about Caitlin Shutt. Caitlin Shutt is going to be just fine.
Was in serious discussions with Indiana, the very coach who had sculpted Clark's chaos into artistry, who never tried to control her, but instead widened the court and let her run. The woman who didn't fear Clark's range, her pace, her fire. She had built an empire around it. Bluder knew how to make Clark shine, not with overcomplicated playbooks, but with trust. Back at Iowa, she'd handed Clark the keys to the offense and told her, drive. And Clark did, through defenses, through expectations, through the pages of history. Under Bluder, she averaged 28 points, 8 assists, limitless highlights, and back-to-back Final Fours. She wasn't just a player, she was an avalanche in sneakers. And now she's been reduced to a reluctant half-court pawn in a stagnant WNBA offense. Double-teamed, out of rhythm, losing games not because of effort, but because she's been misused. Indiana's offense is slow, predictable, a prison for a player built for chaos and flow. And Bluder?
Now, Becky Hammond did speak with the media also. This is what she had to say. Let's roll the footage.
Considering changing the starting lineup for the second half, this time you didn't have to do that. Still won the game in the second half, was solid. What did you see from your starters to really close out this game?
They were just really intentional just by their talk in the huddle and at halftime about winning the third quarter. So they backed that talk up. I like that. They're obviously hyper aware of it. But I thought we cleaned some things up, which enabled us to get out and score in some different ways. I thought our defense was getting strung out too much in that first half, so we made some adjustments, and I think it was better.
Becky, I think you would say you still haven't seen a full 40 minutes, but
It's close.
yeah, just before halftime, they started to make their move. Did it sort of ease maybe the stress level going in at halftime, seeing that, okay, they're building up a little momentum, they're getting on their game, just bring that out into the second half?
Well, I know Asia's not going to struggle for the whole game like she struggled in that first half, so you just know eventually that worm's going to turn. And she was huge in the second half and really huge in the fourth quarter. So, we're still figuring it out, but like our defense is giving us opportunities that we need on the offensive end. I thought Dana and even Tiffany Mitchell's time was really impactful. In fact, they kind of stabilized a shaky ship there from that first end of the first quarter going into that second quarter. I thought both those guys really contributed. And then, obviously Nye knows how to shoot the ball very well.
Everyone sees it. So the calls got more serious, the texts more frequent, and suddenly Lisa Bluder wasn't just retired, she was planning. Then something even more stunning came to light. Stephanie White, the Fever's current coach, once promised stability, experience, guidance. But what she delivered instead was rigidity, hesitation, confusion. The Aces game exposed everything. Aja Wilson wasn't just dominant, she was uncontested. There were no traps, no adjustments, just open lanes and silent sidelines. And when Clark needed floor spacers, White benched her shooters. When she needed direction, White burned timeouts too early, leaving her stranded when it mattered most. These weren't one-off mistakes. This was a pattern. Lost leads, botched inbound plays, mismatched rotations, and worst of all, a system that made one of the most electric players in the world look ordinary. That takes effort or incompetence. The players know it. The locker room whispers have grown louder. Discontent hangs like smoke after a fire. Everyone's waiting for the spark to reignite something, anything. And Clark, she's too smart to say it directly, but her post-game words after the Aces loss hit like a freight train. We need a clearer vision. That wasn't disappointment. That was a coded SOS, a plea. And the front office? They decoded it instantly. So did the fans. So did Lisa Bluder. The power dynamic was shifting.
Not even different understandings. What Stephanie White wants to do is not going to work for this team. It is not going to work for this team. What Stephanie White wants to do will not work. And by the way, I'm not saying what Stephanie White wants to do is won't work in general. Won't work in general. Because it has worked. She's had success. But I'm saying what Stephanie White wants to do will not work for this team specifically. And let's take a listen to what Caitlin Clark said. And she essentially exposed that Stephanie White wants them to play slow.
I thought at times we could have played a little bit faster, and I think that's on me, like not conceding in that. We still got to play up tempo. We still got to
It's on me not conceding.
Play fast. But I mean, I thought for the most part we did a lot of stuff that coach wanted us to do, and you know, that wasn't why we lost.
Like, she literally was like, oh, what the coach wanted us to do wasn't why we lost. I'm conceding. I was conceding by not playing fast. What is she saying? Like, this is the most damning thing I've heard Caitlin Clark say. This is the most damning thing I've heard Caitlin Clark. She didn't even say this about Christy Sides. This is damning. She's saying that she needs to stop conceding and play fast, and that doing what the coach wanted them to do was not why they lost. She said that unprovoked. That is one of the most wild things.
And fast. What's happening now isn't just a coaching change, it's a franchise reset. Lisa Bluder isn't coming back just to hold a clipboard. The talks include long-term control, input on roster construction, influence over team culture. This isn't a temporary patch. This is a revolution disguised as a reunion. Because Bluder knows something that most coaches don't. You don't tame a fire like Caitlin Clark, you feed it. Her offense wasn't built around diagrams. It was built around intuition, spacing, pace, and trust. Under Bluder, Clark played with joy. She played with vision. She played like the game itself bent around her.
This is what we got to do. We got to put Caitlin Clark off ball. We need to run a motion offense. So when the defense takes away what Caitlin Clark does best, we have other players that can still perform. So when she does have bad games, we're not completely dead in the water. I think that is the best way to move forward with this Indiana Fever team. Wait, what'd you say? Wait, what? Did you just tell me that Stephanie White went on an interview tour this whole entire offseason saying exactly that? Did you just tell me Stephanie White went on an interview? So how come when Caitlin Clark has a bad game, this team looks like absolute dog shit? How come when Caitlin Clark isn't busy backpacking this team, it looks like absolute dog shit, coach? Just a question. Just a question. What we saw today, folks, I feel bad for everybody that had to sit through that. Everybody that wasted 2 hours and 25 minutes watching the Indiana Fever versus the Las Vegas Aces. I feel bad that we had to sit through that. That was a tough watch. That was a tough watch. The Indiana Fever lose to the Las Vegas Aces 89-81, running bullshit Stephanie White offense. Let's call a spade a spade. The Indiana Fever lost 89-81, running bullshit Stephanie White offense. But Ben, Ben, the first quarter, folks, let me tell you this right here. Aaliyah Boston had 18 points in the first half. Do you know what happened at halftime? Becky Hammond said, okay guys, I think I know what they're doing. Aaliyah Boston is just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. She's just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. She's just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to switch. Easy money. We're going to switch, and if she gets the ball and she beats us one-on-one, she gets the ball and she beats us one-on-one. But that didn't happen. She did get the ball, and in the second half, she didn't beat us one-on-one. Las Vegas Aces won the halftime adjustment battle.
And if she returns, if Bluder walks into that locker room again, clipboard in hand, eyes locked with Clark's, this entire league better pay attention. Because this isn't about rebuilding, it's about resurrection. And Caitlin Clark doesn't need saving, she needs to be unleashed. And just like that, the Fever became the most dangerous team in the WNBA. This move isn't just about basketball, it's about legacy for Clark, who carries the weight of a sport's future on her back.
This Aces versus Indiana Fever game turned out to be. It was an utter nightmare. It started off looking good in the first half, and somebody said, we're looking real good. And I said, well, the only problem here is Asia Wilson at the time, I believe, was 2 of 13 from the field, and the Indiana Fever only led by 6. And I said, Asia Wilson will get hot later in this game, and the Indiana Fever is going to have to withstand that. I'm going to start by saying this because Caitlin Clark is, let me just check, yeah, she is 1 for her last 17 shots from three-point range. And I uttered this earlier because it was something we saw right before she missed 5 games. Right before she missed 5 games, she was struggling from long range. She's just fine going to the basket. She's just fine pulling up from 12. She's just fine in and around the basket all the way out to about 12 or 15 foot. But her long-range shot struggled right before they pulled her out for 5 games. And I said, is that quad injury giving Caitlin problems again? God, I hope not. I hope not.
Stephanie White, arms crossed, makes no adjustments. Stephanie White, arms crossed, runs nonsensical garbage all game long. I don't even think I saw anything that resembled an Indiana Fever team that I enjoyed watching. From last year, from some games this year, I didn't see any of that transpire at all throughout this game. Let's take a look at the box scores. Natasha Howard, 24 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds, 4 turnovers. Aaliyah Boston, 26 points, 10 rebounds. She had 18 points in the first half. She scored 8 points in the second half. Why? Because Becky Hammond said, we're just going to switch and stop giving her wide open layups, and if she beats us one-on-one, she beats us one-on-one. And guess what happened? She didn't beat them one-on-one. Moving on, Kelsey Mitchell, 20 points, 8 for 13. Kelsey Mitchell, she tried to get us back in the game in the fourth quarter. Too little, too late. Lexi Hull, 7 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists.
And for Bluder, who may be walking into her final coaching chapter with a chance to rewrite everything the WNBA thought it knew. Fans are ready. Sponsors are circling like sharks sensing blood in the water. College faithful who watched Clark tear through brackets are now watching Fever games on mute, praying for something, anything that feels familiar again. And if Bluder returns, that familiarity becomes a weapon. There's a rematch against the Aces coming. The wounds are still fresh. The league is watching. The pressure's mounting. Will Clark step into that game with the same lifeless offense? Or will she have her creator beside her? Her system back. Her freedom returned. If Bluder walks back through that tunnel, this isn't just a coaching move. It's a challenge to the entire WNBA hierarchy. A message that talent must be matched with vision, that stars must be surrounded with belief. Because magic doesn't disappear, it waits for the right hands to revive it. You don't save players like Caitlin Clark. You remember who they are, and you set the world back on fire. Lisa Bluder knew that once. And now, with the league watching, with history holding its breath, she may get to prove it again. This isn't just redemption, it's a reunion with destiny. And if they get this right, you won't just see highlights. You'll witness the rebirth of a basketball empire. Because sometimes, the greatest comeback isn't a player finding their form. It's a coach walking back through the door to finish what she started.